Back to me finally. Welcome back either way. All right, we got Facebook or YouTube up. Welcome in from YouTube. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Line. Thank you guys for joining in. A little bit about me. I run a show. I run it Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sunday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tonight is, of course, the glorious Friday night. Double nodded. I'm terribly sorry to hear that. I stream here on YouTube as well as here on Periscope. So thank you guys for joining in tonight. That's devastating. Double nodded. My heart is breaking for you. And a little bit about me. I am a libertarian. I am a minarchist. Small government's the best government. A government that's limited is the best government. And we're not advocating that very consistently in today's world, which is why I'm not a Republican or anything else. But let's get into the news. So the big news of today is that Senator Susan Collins came out. She had a big question mark over her head for a while, and none of the pundits could really nail it down if she was going to go in favor of the woman or go in favor of the man. And that's the way that they portrayed it, as disgusting as what it is. Because it was, are you going to go in favor of a woman making an allegation? Are you going in favor of Judge Kavanaugh based on his precedent, off of his opinions, off of his rulings, his career history? Or are you going to vote based on party lines, based off of Judge Kavanaugh? There's so many different ways that this can go, and all too often the media is portraying this as a binary decision. That's not the case, of course. So Susan Collins comes out today and she has her speech, and her speech was well-rounded. She talked about the justifications and the reasons why she shouldn't vote, or why some people oppose this, and she debunked those. She did a thorough job on her speech today. I believe it was 35 minutes. It was well worth a watch. Of course, I can't spend the time to play it all for you guys, but please do check that out. So Susan Collins is now confirming she's going to be voting. She's going to be voting in favor of Kavanaugh. Joe Manchin, who he looks as if he's voting in favor of Kavanaugh. So we have Joe Manchin, we have Susan Collins. Those were two people that were question marks. Susan Collins was less of a question mark than what Joe Manchin was. Of course, Joe Manchin is in a deep, deep red state, a state that President Trump won quite handedly. And so we didn't know if he was going to go down party lines or if he was going to go down the voting lines, the expected voting lines, and try to help out with his midterm chances. So we have those two selections. Another big question mark that came out, Jesse Miller, welcome in. Another big question mark that came out recently was the idea of Senator Daines from Montana. Now, Senator Daines from Montana has a daughter who is getting married actually this Saturday. So the same day that Judge Kavanaugh is now looking to be appointed or not, the day of the vote, the big day. Senator Daines has got a huge personal responsibility, and that is to walk his daughter down the aisle for her wedding. So the idea that he may not be able to make the vote, that has also been squashed. About 15 minutes ago, New York Times actually dropped an article. Let me pull that one back up. So basically what the New York Times has in that article is that, well, it would be difficult, extremely difficult, of course, to move the wedding up. But he said, no matter what, I'm going to be watching it. And if my vote is needed, I will be there. And even if it's not needed, I want to be there. So in the event that he would be vote 50, big vote 5-0, which I really don't think he would be. I think he'd be along the lines of 53rd vote, 52nd vote. So he's over confirming at that point. Should he be needed, the idea was that Mitch McConnell will hold up the Senate and will just, pull a Nancy Pelosi, if you will, and just stand there and ramble and complain and everything else, and hold up the process as much as possible. And basically what would occur is if they don't think that they're going to have the votes. If things aren't going their way, they will delay it in any way possible in order to ensure that Danes can come in and confirm the future Justice Kavanaugh. That's the way that this is going. So it's being confirmed now. Now we're going to be able to look to see how many other Democrats on the day of the vote are actually going to transition and flip from the party lines in order to try to protect themselves when it comes to these midterms that are coming up. So the Justice Kavanaugh thing is he's going to be confirmed. I don't think that there's really anything to worry about within that aspect. I think that you should be certainly be looking out for your Fourth Amendment. That's a big push that's coming out, and it's credible. It's a credible claim that he is not necessarily understanding why the protections of the Fourth Amendment were so important and so inherent, even when it comes to cellular device metadata. So he's also a judge that believes that the government should run healthcare. And we're going to take that conversation. We're going to take the idea that the government should be running healthcare, and I'm going to actually change it up and go to the discussion about government should be running education. Let's just not have the government provide us with services. Let's stop that, because we can't trust them. They suck. They're horrible. It's the government. How many people are approving of the government year in and year out, right? It's based on the party. It's based on the person. It's based on this, that, and the other. But overall, you're not satisfied with it. None of us are. None of us are. I think Congress has like an 11% approval rating. That's woo. Don't set the bar too high, So I want to get into that entire subject. That entire subject of the government indoctrinating, the government serving itself and not the people. It's this idea is why we need to scrutinize, and we don't go off of bombastic, hyperbolic views and opinions in order to try to guilt the other side into it. We need to bring back honesty into this country. And so, when it comes to Judge Kavanaugh, let's not look at it as if President Trump was nominating him. Let's not look at it as if it was a Republican being nominated. Sure, we can love the fact that he is a Second Amendment absolutist. He's very strong on the Second Amendment. He even believes that DC versus Heller was improperly ruled on or granted an opinion from, because he believes that there was limitations that were passed within that, and that is not congruent or not in the pursuance of the Constitution. So we can look at that and we can say, yes, there's good things about Judge Kavanaugh. We can have honest conversations about that. And we can talk about the detriments. We can talk about the downfalls. This doesn't happen in our country anymore. We no longer have honest discussions, intellectual discussions, understanding the purpose of the Constitution, of the Bill of Rights. And a lot of that stems from the government running our own education system. When the government teaches you things, when the government is in charge of teaching you things, do you think that the government would teach you to be critical of itself? That it would be, that it would teach you to not want the government doing these things? Do you think that the government would portray itself in a negative light? Of course not. So whenever you have an entity that is providing something, and they are providing such a massive service, such an important part of life, why would you want to give that control to somebody else, somebody that you don't have control over? We don't have control over the government. We don't have control over the schools. We don't have any of that, but we are forced to pay into it. How many people are able to get out of paying for schools? Whether you have a child in school or not, none of us. All of us are forced to pay, regardless on if we have children and if the children go to school. So we are subsidizing a service in which we are not utilizing. So on the Constitution, that goes against the general welfare, right? Something that goes undiminished to everyone. Not everyone's getting an education, then not everyone has to pay. That's it's just so disheartening to see so many good people, so many good, smart, intellectual people, that they just haven't. They look at the Democratic Party and they say, we have to oppose them. And so there's the Republican Party, or we have to oppose the Republican Party and there's the Democratic Party. What we are often failing to notice is that it's both parties are the same parties. They are the same. Small semantics between the two, but they both advocate for a bigger government. They both advocate for taxation, for things that don't for taxation without representation. They both advocate for so much, as opposed to teaching what they should think. Yeah, you're absolutely right with that, Double Knotted. It's this. We have to bring back power to the people. We don't have power in the government. We don't have power in our schools. We don't have power in our states. We don't have power anywhere, because all that has occurred is that we've all been subverted. We've all been misinformed. We've all fallen victim to the teachings of people who control too many aspects of our lives, and they are able to, through that methodology, through that process, be able to subvert us and just push out these sheeple that we continually see. Both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, look at the other side and they say, you're just a sheeple. You're just sheep. You just blindly follow. Welcome in, Shane Sweeney. Welcome in, my good sir. And we have that. That's all we have, is we have people that are pointing at the other side saying you're a sheep. No, you're accurate. Both sides are the sheep. Both sides both advocate for a bigger government. One side tries to say that they are. The other side is just honest about it. Let's be honest. Democrats are honest when they say, I want a bigger government, and they get into office and they make that bigger government. Republicans say, I want a smaller government, and they get in and they're like, yes, I want the government to lay down these tariffs. I want the government to to enforce our borders, to have ICE, to have this, that, and the other. And it's just like, that's not enumerated in the Constitution either. So even you are guilty of not looking at the Constitution in an objective standard, not based on your feelings. So we have both sides that are advocating for a larger government than what was to be provided to us or within our powers. So it's this idea, it's this ideology that we must find another party that wants to actually come in and say, government, even though I'm a part of you now, right? When we elect a libertarian, when we elect actual libertarians, and the libertarians come in, they're like, look, I'm glad that I can represent people, but I don't want to represent them poorly. So I'm going to let them make more decisions on their own. When it comes to education, hey, I don't know what you want taught in school. Do you want the LGBT lifestyle taught in school? This person says yes, this person says no. How do you decide on who gets it, right? You shouldn't. That the kids that want to be subverted by their parent, or not subverted, but taught about the LGBT agenda, the lifestyle, and everything else, they can go to a school that they decide. And then the parents that don't want to send their kids to those schools, they can go to another school. It's amazing. The idea that our education system, we value it. We value our education system. We want our kids to be smart. We want our kids to be intelligent. We want our kids to have every bit of availability to themselves to be as successful as they are able to achieve. We want that. But we don't want to have competition. We don't want to have honest competition between government ran schools and otherwise. The amount of sacrifices it takes for somebody to do homeschooling and to pay the taxes to pay for kids to go to school and pay for this and pay for that and pay for this, that, and the other. When we're paying a 40% effective tax rate, we are incapable of being able to provide the lifestyle to our children that we should be able to. If we weren't having to pay for other people to take care of themselves, we would be able to take care of ourselves much, much better. But it's this idea that we have to be responsible for others. No, you have to be responsible for yourself. When you own yourself, when you actually take control of yourself and you stop being, a roundhouse kicking lefty against somebody during a pro-life speech or discussion. When you act like that, you lose all, you don't have control over yourself. Why should you have control over somebody else? So we need to be able to have control over our schools. If we can't provide a homeschool education, which a lot of parents don't, and because they work so much, they should be able to go to a private school. If they go to a private school, why is the private school not getting funding and only funding from the government? If the government is going to provide money for the public schools, they should be paying for the private schools. They should be paying for the homeschooling teachers, for the parents that are doing this. If we're going to pay educators with taxpayer money, then anyone who provides an education should be paid by taxpayer money. Anyone and everyone. Let's make this more available for people to compete. Of course not. We know that this would never happen. We would never see this happen. And beyond that, if they were ever to say, I'm funding this system, I'm funding this private school, I'm funding this homeschooler, then they believe that they would have the authority to regulate on what is taught, what is not taught, how things are taught, the structures, the intervals, everything about it. They should not be. They have no authority over it. But they've determined that taxpayer money could be and should be allocated for this. So pay it, and you get out. You get out of trying to regulate it. You get out of trying to control this. Our country was founded on the idea that government does not have the individual's best interest at heart, which is why we have the most limited government ever created by a constitution. Our government today is in no way, in any way possible, being viewed as a small government. Our government does not in any way reflect what the Constitution pointed out. It's frustrating to me. And I see people are so divided right now. People are so extremely divided right now. If we look in California, we see people getting upset about the LGBT community being pushed in schools, or safe sex or abortion things being pushed in school. Or we see schools that are being effective with Muslim ideology, with teachings about Islam. We get upset about that. We get upset about this, that, and the other, and we never think it through all the way. How am I going to get my opinions heard for this school? How am I going to get my views, my principles provided through this school? Well, it's the government school, and the government doesn't care about you, so you're not going to get your way there. You have to look at it, and you have to understand the entire topic. You will never get what you want when the government provides it for you. They will provide it good enough to get enough people to be satisfied with it, and not a bit better. They will do it just well enough to where they can say there's still an issue, so you still need to bring me in, you still need to reelect me so that I can continue to fix this. They don't care about you. They don't care about you at all. I really wish that people would, not me, I really wish that more people would see this and think things through to the next level. Don't demand what a school provides for you or doesn't. Find your own school. Find a way. And when you leave, and when everyone leaves and the government's just pouring money into these schools, then we demand that they stop paying for it. We demand that we get better. But it's sad to say that in our country, which was founded on patriots, on people who wanted to fight against government controlling, or the government control, that wanted to fight against to being independent and sovereign and being able to make your own decisions, that now we are a nation of people that lay down and just accept as things come and as they continue to come. We accept whenever there's a new tax. We accept whenever they push something that's unconstitutional. We accept all of these things. Sure, you'll see people get upset. You'll see people get angry. But what do they do about it? They tweet it. They post a Facebook post. They They tell a friend, I'm upset. But there's no action. No one is taking any actions. No one is getting up and saying, I'm going to go run for the government because I actually want to make this a better country, because I want you to be free. No one is doing that. Instead, what we have are people that are coming into office saying, I want to have more control over you. Are you the final arbiter of what is constitutional or not? No, I just have a basic understanding of the Constitution. And it's clear. Be active in your children's education. Yes, that's important, all right? Whenever parents should always be getting involved as much as possible. What's going on, Daniel? Welcome in, man. Parents, it's your job to ensure that your child is being raised in the way that you want it to, right? That they're learning the lessons that they need to learn, that they are being provided an education that they want, or that the parent wants. So if you want your children to learn about religion, you teach them religion. If you want them to learn about creation or about evolution, you teach them about evolution. Whatever you want to teach them, you're supposed to be the one teaching them. You shouldn't be forced to delegate it to somebody else. Are there people in government who might have more expertise than you do about constitutional matters? There may be people in government, but they're not vocal at all, and they're not actually portraying this in an accurate light. I'm sorry, I'm getting deflected for a second. So when it comes to even Judge Kavanaugh, right? Judge Kavanaugh during his hearing, during his statements, not during the testimony, if you will, but during the confirmation hearings, he even said that precedent was above the Constitution. So it's the precedent, the Constitution, and the facts of the case. That was the way that he broke that down. That's disgusting, right? Precedent does not go above the Constitution. If we look at Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution, that's the supremacy clause. The Constitution and any laws and the pursuance thereof, ... shall be the supreme law of the land. So precedent is not supreme to the Constitution, but it's okay. So anyways, back to the education side of things. So it's upon the parents to do this. We shouldn't be delegating this. We shouldn't be paying for it to be delegated. This shouldn't be a service that's being provided by the government. It should be upon each individual. If you weren't paying the taxes, you would have more money to be able to pay for this. Since the government's already stuck its nose in it, the way that we transition away from this, the way that we transition to having the people having more power when it comes to an education, is the idea that we have school choice, which is basically you have a tax-funded check that follows your child around. If your child goes to this school, that school gets money. If there's no kids going to this school does not get money. So it's based off of, hey, you provide a better quality, you provide a better service, you get more customers, you get more money. Hey, let's push for some competition. Competition only makes it better for the consumer. Are there downsides to school choice? Yes, there are downsides. There's downsides for every decision out there. So some of the downsides for school choice is that schools can fail. Schools will fail. Schools that do not provide an education that are not wanted by the society around them will fail. Many people see that as a flaw, as a failure, as a downside. At the end of the day, that's, for me, I'm indifferent to them. Whereas government-run schools, there isn't much effort to compete or perform well. Exactly right, Daniel. There's no incentive for the government to provide better, right? That's one of the base rules of what the government is. The government is an entity that survives at the will, or not at the will, but at the threat of violence. So you have to pay your taxes. If you don't pay your taxes, what happens? The government comes in and they threaten you with violence. Hey, we're going to throw you in this cage. Hey, we're going to take you to court. Hey, we're going to do this. We're going to take this from you. We're going to take things from you until you give us what we wanted to take from you originally. So you have to pay your taxes so that they can fund what they want to fund. And yes, the school can be financially successful and still fail the student. Yes. And as they fail, then people wake up to it and they go, I'm not going to use the school anymore. So it's a huge issue where the government gets to dictate, hey, I get to survive, I get to exist, I get to continue on doing as I please because I said so. Because if not, I have the authority over you, because I control you. That is so divergent from what the founding fathers ever wanted for us. Have you ever been a teacher in a classroom? So that's an argument against authority. Again, like this is your second time doing an argument against authority, but that's fine. Logical fallacies are fun. It's I hope that for everyone who has subscribed, everyone who follows, everyone who comes in for these conversations, we have to look at the government and understand what the government is, what the government's ideas are, what the government wants to do. And that is never in the best interest of you. It's in the best interest of itself, right? Because even though that corporation, that entity is capable and has been surviving at the threat of violence, it still would like to have you approve of itself. It still wants you to trust it. And so as long as they're able to reach their fingers out into every market, into every area of your life, as long as they're able to do that, they are more likely to be able to get it. I'm not denying you have an opinion, just wonder where I should trust your thought on this. See, that was the argument against authority, right? Either my claims are good or my claims are bad, but where I've worked, what I've done doesn't determine if they're good or bad. That's the logical fallacy I was pointing out. And so I mean, we often have conversations about healthcare. Government sucks at giving you healthcare. Why should the government run healthcare? It shouldn't, because we'd rather have competition. Is the government good at running education? No, people come out subverted. We have our education system right now. Our education system right now is completely subverting the kids that are going through it. Do you think for the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th century history studies that are being taught, do you think a lot of these are focusing on what is deemed right-wing atrocities? Or do you think that they're looking at socialism or communism? Obviously, it's the former, right? We're seeing a lot about Hitler. We're seeing a lot about slavery. We're seeing a lot of this, that, and the other. But what is being omitted? What is being omitted from these studies, from these teachings, is the idea of why our country became what it was, why our Constitution was created and written in the way that it was, why we actually went against we did the Boston Tea Party against a 3% tax. Yeah, we sit here at 40% effective tax rate right now. We have like so many of these why questions that are just being omitted. Why was Pol Pot not spoken about? Why are these communistic, socialistic regimes that became tyrannical and ran so many countries down into the ground and destroyed them? Why are they not being spoken about honestly? So we look at all of the education system. We can point to why it is that they want that. What is consistent with socialism and communism? A big government. What is consistent with any government that's out there? Wanting to be bigger. Everything is consistent. Everything that the government does, it tries to be able to provide you a service, a good, or whatever it is, in order to incentivize you to want them to provide you with more. That is it. They don't care about you. They care about you just as much as any big chain cares about each individual customer. If you think that they care about you, go walk into Staples and go yell at the print marketing supervisor.
Hey.
Not this one. Go yell at one of them, and they will tell you, we don't care about you. Go ahead, leave. So if they don't care about you, why are we funding them so heavily? Why do we advocate for more of it? Why don't we wake up? Oh, that's right, because we still are getting our education. We still have the media, the mainstream media coming out here and not talking about things honestly. That goes for CNN, that goes for Fox News, that goes for CBS, that goes for MSNBC, that goes for all of them. That goes for all of them. They won't have an honest conversation with you. They won't get honest people that actually read the Constitution, that read the primary documents to understand what the intent of these laws were. Instead, what you have is people saying, look, the Second Amendment was about the militia. No, it wasn't. Learn grammar. Learn how the Second Amendment was founded. Learn about James Madison justifying sailors of having cannons, personally owning cannons, and saying, yeah, Second Amendment, what you want. Have whatever you want. And then DC versus Heller comes along and says, if it's not a normally owned weapon, you don't get it. That's not the Constitution. That's not the Second Amendment. And the media goes, yeah, they're right. They're absolutely right. This is exactly what's written there. So the media is complacent with the big government. The government is complacent with a bigger government. Education system, the schools, the teachers, everything surrounding our populace right now is screaming that we need a bigger government, except for our history. So I'm hoping that over time I'll be able to provide an education to others that you will come along, you will continue to learn with me. I'm continuing to learn each and every day. I'm doing as much research as I can. And I hope that we can continue on learning together. We can advocate, we can grow together as a community and actually come out here and fight against things that don't care about us. Let us have the power. Who is complacent with big business? What do you mean who's complacent with big business? Who is okay with big business? I'm better with big business than I am with a big government. When it comes to, let's go into that for a quick second. How do big businesses survive? Big businesses are often protected by big government, our government. So let's use California for example. For those of you who have missed last weekend, Brown from California, Mayor Brown, he passed a piece of legislation there in California in reenacting net neutrality. Now, even within some of the media sources that are even discussing this, they're continuing on with the same points that I was making that was not being honestly projected out when net neutrality was hitting us as a nation. That is that no matter how big or small your internet use is, whether you're Netflix, you are Walmart, or if your grandma's knitting company, you pay the same. So since Netflix is using more, do you think that Netflix should be paying more than what grandma's knitting company? Of course they should be. Not with net neutrality, no. And so you have Netflix here on their usage, and you have grandma's knitting company. Do you think it's going to be closer to grandma's, or do you think it's going to be closer to Netflix's? Of course, we are now creating barriers. We're creating smaller barriers right there, protected by government, ran by government, and legislated by government to prohibit, to create another obstacle, to slow down competitors from being able to get in there. So it's these little things where big government creates big business. So if we want to fight against this, guess what? You can't have a monopoly in a free country. You can't. You can only have monopolies when the government is protecting it. It's this right here. You have to look at it one step further to understand that no matter what you're talking about, almost no matter what you're complaining about when it comes to what is going on in this country, we can point at it and say, look, here's where the government did us wrong. You guys want to talk about gun violence? Let's talk about how 98% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. Why is it that we have gun-free zones? It's to keep guns out. So when somebody comes in with a gun, guess what happens? They kill more people. So let's say the government is now infringing upon people's right to keep and bear arms, to be able to prohibit, to slow people down, to hinder people's ability to protect their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Mike is still coming in. Thank you. So there's gun violence right there. We knocked that one out. Boom. Or whenever they're making it more difficult for people to have guns, right? Well, bad people are going to have guns. Yeah, more people. If more good people have guns, the only way to stop a bad guy is a good guy with a gun. That's Basic premise. That's basic understanding. So we have that. Yeah, companies count on welfare to support their workforce. So let's get rid of the welfare. And then when companies are not providing enough and the people are struggling, they can go, hey, look, the economy is actually booming right now. Hey, look, there's plenty of jobs out there. There's more jobs than there are unemployed people right now. Maybe I can go find a job. Maybe I can go find a better job. Now, when they move, guess what happens? That last company, if they can't hire people, they're going to raise their wages. So you can actually cause wages to go up just by saying, look, I'm not going to work for this cheaper money. I'm going to go find someplace better. I'm going to better myself, go give myself an education in some way. I'm going to do something in order to get better. That doesn't need welfare. That doesn't need government assistance. That doesn't need a minimum wage. We'll cite the law to the bad guy with the gun. It'll always work. Exactly, Daniel. Exactly. If we just tell him he's breaking the law. I'm sure a lot of us have seen the, was it Black Rifle Company? I believe it was Black Rifle Company.
Company?
Yeah, I think they have the advertisements. It was one of the veteran groups. And they had an ad, and it was basically one guy standing in his kitchen, and three muggers come in, and they pull out their guns. He's like, hey, whoa, gun-free zone. And so, like, they get upset, and they have to put it away. Or no, sorry, first one was, like, fully automatic weapons. And they're like, hey, you're in America, can't have those. And so they had to put those away. They pulled out pistols, and he's like, gun-free zone. And they're like, oh, man. And so, like, he walks them casually out the door. Like, laws don't work that way. When people want to perform an action, it doesn't matter whether it's illegal or illegal. Give them the opportunity. Give everyone the opportunity to be able to protect themselves, to defend themselves. That's all I'm saying. Let people be able to protect their own life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Matt Best and Black Rifle Coffee do fantastic videos. Yes, they do. It's government gets in the way of us every single time, and we keep voting in people that will just infringe upon it in one way or another. And sticking to the Kavanaugh idea, right? Like I said, Kavanaugh is great on the Second Amendment. Fantastic on the Second Amendment. Love him for a Second Amendment stance. But we're sacrificing the Fourth Amendment for the Second Amendment. Not a fun day. So if we can, we are now sacrificing another part of our Bill of Rights, of our Constitution, of our limiting on the government. We are losing that again. And people are cheering about this. Let's not look at this. 95% of America believes in the Second Amendment. Well, it really doesn't matter who believes in it or not. It's still there. It's no time to debate the Fourth Amendment. He threw ice. Yeah, he threw ice in a bar 30 years ago. Exactly. I want you guys to understand that don't just believe something because your party believes something. Let's actually hold government accountable. Let's actually find good people, and let's support good people. Let's support people that actually care about your core convictions. And the idea that, well, no one's ever going to be perfect in your eyes, don't ask them to be perfect. Ask them to be consistent. Ask them to actually stand up for their morals. And if they are inconsistent with, say, the Constitution, and they break that oath, let's actually call for their impeachment. Let's actually call for action. Let's actually take action against the government the way that our founding fathers wanted us to be able to. But alas, we don't. Alas, we are asleep. We are the sheeple. We are the people that are countlessly victimized by the government, and we still support them. It's just disheartening, guys. It is just disheartening. After these.
Can I design you a shirt that says "We the Sheeple"?
You can.
With your logo? You
can design me "We the Sheeple." I'm sure that everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, Mr. Bearded Truth. He just goes out there and makes sheeple. Well, no, it's, I don't know. Like, I'm just looking at every situation lately. In every situation where I see, like, the Democrats versus the Republicans, I look at that and I say, you guys are fighting over something small, petty, and worth less. Right? When it comes to Judge Kavanaugh, talking about these allegations, talking about throwing ice, talking about being a gang rapist, talking about this, that, and the other, when they're just transitioning from one point to another point to another point to another point, it is clear that they aren't worried about it sticking. They aren't worried about standing firm for that. What they're doing is they're just trying to collect another 5 people, another 10 people, another 15 people to pull away from that vote, to pull support, to have more of an outrage. But what they're missing is what the entire premise of what a justice is supposed to be. A justice is supposed to be somebody who actually knows what the Constitution is. When the government is not acting constitutionally, you say, no, 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 no. You stop that right now.
Nay, nay, mofro.
Nay, nay, mofro. And if you need clarification on that, if you want to see somebody who actually is in the government and is talking about that, look at Ben Sass's opening statement during Judge Kavanaugh's hearing. He nailed it spot on. He was talking about the judiciary's authority. He talked about Congress's authority. He talked about the president's authority. He talked about those things. And we need that to come back. We need to have that come back for us so that we can have an education system again, so that we can have an actual healthcare system, so we don't have to be living under Swedish tax law. Although it would be nice because it would be a flat tax versus a progressive tax. So we're not hurting people for making more money. Dems doing what Trump said to do in 2008, delay, 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 don't you remember? So here's also, Thomas brings up a good point with the delay. We've been seeing where people are getting upset. People are truly getting upset over the way that justices are being selected. You still have people that are outraged over Merrick Garland's non-vote. So if you guys remember that was when President Obama, it was during the election year, a Republican-led Senate, a Democratic president. He wanted to nominate somebody. He could have. He was free to do so within accordance with the Constitution, and the Senate was not required to vote on it. Why was the Senate not required to vote on it? Well, if we read Article 3 of the Constitution, if we read how justices are actually appointed and nominated, you would understand that the president, in accordance with Article 2, the president of the United States nominates. The Senate cannot force the president to nominate. So the president at his leisure or at her leisure nominates a judicial judge or nominates the next judge. What happens next is the Senate goes, all right, it's my constitutional authority to vote, to appoint. So if the Senate doesn't want to vote, you can't say they're not acting within the confinements of the Constitution. They are. There's no timetable. There's no requirement on that at all. They can, if the president was to walk out and say, I nominate this person, the Senate could change their own rules in accordance with the Constitution and be able to actually appoint that judge in the same day. That is a possibility. That is capable. They have control. This is actually one of the more disgusting things about the Senate or about Congress is that they get to set their own conduct and set their own rules. But they could do that. And there's nothing that we can do against that. So with Merrick Garland, people need to stop being upset over that. When it comes to Judge Kavanaugh, and we talk about the Democrats delaying, the Democrats can delay all that they want to. They can try to delay. What is constitutional is that at any moment, Mitch McConnell can call for cloture. Well, he's already done that. But he could have done that at any moment, and he could have pushed it through. Now we're going to see Saturday night, Sunday morning, we will see Justice Kavanaugh. The Supreme Court shouldn't matter. Dems versus Republicans, one Constitution. Well, so the Supreme Court should matter because the Democrats and the Republicans who have been in the White House and in Congress have been failing to abide by the Constitution. Therefore, the Supreme Court is the oversight, if you will, and is supposed to actually rescind those unconstitutional actions or laws. So the Constitution or the Supreme Court is just as important as the other branches. They have a lot less authority over things, but they're able to basically be a giant no for the government, and they are failing to do so. It's a failure on all three branches right now. We've had a lot of activist judges come on there, and that's been a huge issue. Bless you, baby. And so the Supreme Court is a very important branch of our government. We just need actual constitutional judges to come in. I wouldn't even care. Like, honestly, I would not even be that upset if it was just like you took some random Joe Schmo and you just said, look, this person knows the Constitution very well and will just come in and rip apart everything else. Boom. Shouldn't matter if a Dem appoints a Republicans of Constitution. But the problem is that Democrats have often, if you look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg went over to Africa and was talking about what a country should do with their founding, or if they want to re-envision their structure system. She said, I would not use the Constitution as a basis. All right. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a justice on the bench right now that is openly advocated against the Constitution and on a couple of cases on a list, but so it's not about one Constitution in that aspect, because even they are susceptible to failing the Constitution as they have repeatedly, right? And that's an issue. I don't know. I don't know how to fix all this. Term limits for judges. Why term limits? I disagree. I disagree entirely. I don't want to have a nomination process for the judges as well. Every 6 years, every 4 years, every 8 years. That's horrible. Plus, on top of that, whenever you have a good judge and you want to say, look, I'm going to limit this good judge because there's other crappy judges out there, like you're really stumping yourself in the foot for that one. It's just not a good look. But yeah, so I wanted to take a quick moment. So this weekend will be my first year anniversary with my wife. So I won't be here all weekend. I'll be here on Sunday, Sunday night. I'll get a break away from her for a little bit, and I'll do another video with you guys. We'll get into more of the stories of what's been happening this last week. There's a lot going on that I've not been able to cover with you guys, and so we will get into that on Sunday. I'm going to cut this video a little bit short. Thank you guys for the congrats. And I hope you guys all have a great weekend this weekend. Hope you guys all have an amazing amount of fun, and you guys are safe and everything else. We will be safe. We'll be staying in the area, so we're not even going to be traveling this year. We'll be all right. Huh? For what? Our anniversary. Oh yeah. So we're gonna enjoy our weekend nonetheless. And oh wow, 44. With that, guys, I'm going to hop off here. I appreciate you guys for joining in. Thank you so much for all the support, for coming in, adding into the conversation. I will not be having my phone this weekend at all, though, so I apologize for those. I'm going to be missing communications. Thank you, everyone, for the support. Thank you all for your retweets, for sharing it out with your subscribers, sharing it out with your friends, and everyone else. I appreciate all the support.
That's the number of politics for this weekend. The number. Firm. Happy wife, happy life.
No. So I hope you guys all have a great weekend. And I'll see you guys on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me, Jason Lyon, Mr. Merker, the Bearded Truth. You are all good, Daniel. I appreciate you for joining in nonetheless, man. So you guys all have a great night. Ash. Hey, there's Ash.
I know. I've been talking to her this whole time. She likes my commentary.
Oh, good. All right. Y'all have a good one. Oh, yeah. Just so I don't forget. Don't drink and drive or ride with those who do. You have friends and family who care about you and love you deeply, and they want to see you safe. And, of course, I want to see you back here Sunday at 7 p.m. So have a good one. I am Mr. Merker, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. Have a great night. Enjoy your weekend, and be safe.